Ready for a deep dive? We're jumping into the intense world of the NEET exam in India today. That make or break exam for students dreaming of becoming doctors.
It's a wild ride for sure. Millions of students, intense pressure, and a whole bunch of myths we need to unpack.
We've got a stack of articles to help us navigate this. We're talking harsh reality of the NEET exam, insights for NEET 2025 students, myth and reality of NEET, and a couple more that really get into the weeds of how those seats are allocated and what the future might hold.
Sounds like we've got our work cut out for us.
You got that right. The first thing that really hit me when I was going through these articles, it's the sheer scale of this exam. We're talking over 2 million students who took the NEET in 2024. It's mind-boggling.
It really highlights the immense pressure surrounding medical education in India. It's not just about a career, it's a deeply respected profession woven into the fabric of society.
And those numbers are only climbing higher. The Harsh Reality article mentioned over 2.3 million students took the NEET in 2024. Just a little over half actually qualified.
Wow, so that's a pretty big jump from the previous year. In 2023, it was around 2 million, right?
Exactly. So we're talking about 250,000 more students in just 1 year. And when you consider the limited number of MBBS seats, especially in those coveted government colleges,
It creates an incredibly competitive atmosphere. We're talking about institutions like Maulana Azad Medical College and Lady Hardinge, known for their legacies and producing top-notch medical professionals. These aren't just any seats.
no wonder the NEET exam is practically synonymous with pressure. And here's the thing, it's interesting. This article, Myth and Reality of NEET, it challenges this whole idea that acing the exam means you're set for a smooth sailing medical career.
It's a common misconception, as if one exam can measure everything that makes a great doctor.
Right. Because it's not just about what's in the textbooks, is it?
Not at all. NEET is just the very first step on what is often a long and challenging journey.
Makes you think about those qualities you just can't cram for, right? Like, I'm sure you can memorize every single bone in the human body, but can you actually handle the emotional weight of being a doctor?
Absolutely. It takes a special kind of resilience.
Okay, but let's circle back to the NEET itself for a sec. The Myth and Reality article dives into some common beliefs about the exam, especially the whole preparation process.
Right, like that whole thing about coaching centers.
Yeah, is it even possible to succeed without going to one of those intense coaching centers?
It's interesting, the article doesn't just give a straight yes or no.
Which is refreshing, honestly.
Totally. It acknowledges that for some students, those coaching centers can be super helpful. The structure, the guidance, it works for them. But
There's always a but.
it also highlights those self-study success stories. The students who prove that with enough dedication, the right resources, and a solid plan, you can absolutely conquer NEET on your own terms.
So it's like anything else, I guess. There's no magic formula. Okay, but what about that other big myth, the one that says if you fail NEET, your medical dreams are completely over? That's a lot of pressure to put on one exam.
And the article's very clear on that. It's a myth, pure and simple. It's easy to get caught up in that whole NEET frenzy and forget there are other paths to a fulfilling medical career.
So what are the alternatives? What can someone who's passionate about medicine do if the NEET isn't working out the way they hoped?
Well, there's always the international route. Many universities abroad have fantastic medical programs,
Oh, right.
and their admission criteria, it's not just about one single exam. They often take a more holistic view, considering your extracurriculars, volunteer work, your overall academic performance, that kind of thing.
So it's about recognizing that different people thrive in different environments.
Exactly. And then there's this whole world of allied health professions, which often gets, I don't know, maybe a little overshadowed by the whole NEET intensity.
Overshadowed, yeah, that's a good way to put it.
We're talking about pharmacy, physiotherapy, nursing, medical lab technology. These are all absolutely crucial parts of the healthcare ecosystem.
It's all about finding your niche, that place where your skills and your passions really align within the medical field.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Okay, but let's say you do ace the NEET. What happens next?
Ah, the million-dollar question.
Because the NEET Seat Allotment 2024 article really digs into how those coveted seats are actually allocated. And let me tell you, it's way more complex than I ever imagined.
You're telling me it's not as simple as picking your favorite college from a list and calling it a day.
Not even close.
Right. This article breaks it all down, starting with the two main quotas. The All India quota, which makes up 15% of the seats, and then the state quota, which covers the remaining 85%.
Okay, That makes sense. But I can imagine it gets a little confusing for students trying to navigate all of that.
Oh, absolutely.
Can you walk us through how it all works?
Sure. So the Medical Counseling Committee, or MCC, they manage the All India quota seats. They also handle seats in certain, I guess you could call them elite institutions, places like BHU, AIMS, JIPMER, and Delhi University. But each state has its own counseling authority that handles its own state quota seats.
Okay, so that adds another layer of complexity.
Right. And each state might have its own set of regulations, its own procedures. It can get a little hairy.
So understanding the specifics of the state where you're applying is super important. What other factors, besides those quotas, come into play when they're allocating those seats?
Well, your NEET rank is huge.
Mm-hmm.
And that's determined by your score, of course. Then there's your list of preferences, the colleges you've ranked as your top choices during that counseling process. And of course, we've got to factor in the reservation criteria, which ensure representation for various categories.
Wow, so we've got quotas, rankings, preferences, reservations. It's a lot to keep track of.
It's a lot, and that's not even everything.
And speaking of things that feel a little up in the air, let's talk about the million-dollar question that's probably on every student's mind. Will there be more MBBS seats available in 2025, 2026? The article, will MBBS seats increase in 2025, 2026? That's what it's tackling.
The big question, right? Everyone wants to know.
So what's the verdict? Are we getting a straight answer? More MBBS seats, yes or no? So are we getting a straight answer? More MBBS seats, yes or no?
Oh, I wish it were that easy. The article doesn't give us a clear-cut answer, unfortunately. There are just so many factors at play.
Makes sense. It's not like there's a magic wand they can wave, right?
Exactly. The National Medical Council can't just create more seats out of thin air.
Right, of course. So what are some of those factors that make it so hard to predict whether there will be more MBBS seats?
Well, the article talks about the impact of government initiatives. We're talking policies, funding, even healthcare infrastructure projects. All of these things can influence how many medical seats are available.
So what the government decides to prioritize in the next few years will have a big impact on those MBBS numbers.
Absolutely. Another thing the article mentions is the role of private colleges.
Right, because there aren't nearly as many private medical colleges in India compared to other countries, are there?
Exactly. So that begs the question, could granting permission for more private medical colleges be part of the solution?
Interesting. But then again, we were talking earlier about how private colleges often come with higher fees. Not exactly accessible for every student, is it?
That's the trade-off, isn't it? And there's another layer of complexity here. The article brings up the distribution of medical colleges across different states. It's not exactly balanced, is it?
Now that you mention it, I do remember the article saying certain states have a way higher concentration of medical colleges than others.
Right. Places like Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Maharashtra.
Hmm.
They've got a lot of medical colleges compared to, say, Manipur or Goa.
It's those regional differences, those disparities that need to be addressed.
Absolutely. If the goal is to make quality medical education accessible to everyone, then ensuring a more even distribution of those colleges across all states is a big piece of the puzzle.
So it sounds like predicting a definite increase in MBBS seats for 2025 or 2026 is pretty much impossible with so many moving parts.
Pretty much. Too many variables. But, the article does suggest that even if we don't see a massive increase in the number of seats, a slight increase in the coming years. Totally possible.
Okay, so there's a glimmer of hope.
I'd say so. Between potential government initiatives, the possibility of more private colleges, and those ongoing efforts to beef up healthcare infrastructure, there are reasons to be, I'd say, cautiously optimistic.
That's a good point.
Right.
So while we might not have a crystal ball handy, one thing's for sure, that demand for medical education in India not going away anytime soon.
No, not at all. And that's why these conversations are so important. We've got to keep digging into the realities, the complexities, and yeah, even those myths surrounding NEET and what it takes to become a doctor in India.
Couldn't agree more. We covered a ton of ground today. The competitive landscape of NEET, those common myths, how those seats are actually allocated, and we even pondered the future of MBB seats in India.
Sure. It was quite the deep dive.
Tell me about it. But we did it all through the lens of these super insightful articles. I really hope everyone listening will check them out. You can really sink your teeth into this topic.
Absolutely. A great place to keep the learning going.
And don't worry, we'll link to all of them in the show notes so you can find them easily. So, as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of NEET, here's a little something to think about. How might this whole evolving landscape of medical education impact the future of healthcare in India? It's a big question. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive, everyone. Until next time, keep those brains engaged. We'll be back soon with another fascinating topic.